Hi everyone, this is Ronnie. I've not made a video in a while, but I really do need to make videos. Like I really like the feedback that I get, the sort of feeling of something, connection, community, whatever it is I get from it. I just like to share, so I want to keep making videos for this channel. And last week was the UK Fruitfest, and I suppose I'll talk about that. Um, it's been probably the hardest 4 months of my life, 4 or 5 months. Uh, where out of the blue, this pandemic, this coronavirus thing happened. I found out the word pandemic just means that it's crossed borders. That's kind of interesting. The idea that a pandemic's like this big serious thing, but it just means it's crossed borders. Oh well. So that all happened in back in March. Lockdown started, and up to that point, the festival was doing like better than ever, and we had about as many people signed up by February as we had signed up by July last year. By which I mean we had about 160 people at the festival last year, and by February we already had pretty much that amount of people signed up to come. So we still had March, April, May, June, July for more people to sign up. So it was going to be like record breaking year, way better than years before, a bigger event. We were going to be able to really invest in it and make it like and do all sorts of great things for the attendees, and really, I don't know, just make it a really great thing, and have a lot of tropical fruits there maybe, and all sorts of different cool things. And February comes, March comes, and then there's this kind of whispering of this coronavirus. And I just thought, like every other virus that comes along, okay, China can't deal with it, but that's China. Um, and then the World Health Organization starts to say it's kind of a serious thing, and then gradually starts to everything starts to change, and the world starts to change, and the world kind of loses its mind, and countries start to lock down in a completely unprecedented fashion that has never been seen, that goes pretty much against any kind of common sense, any kind of scientific sense, any sense about how to cope with a pandemic or whatever. And the suspicion, the idea was at least there was one model from one university that said 500,000 people could die in the UK, or would die in the UK, and we will need to slow that down by locking down so that we don't overburden the NHS. And 3% of people could die who get this and all this stuff. All of that turned out to not be true. I think most people know that now. There's a lot of people I know that still think it's going to kill 500,000 people. It's like, you must realise that that's clearly not the case. Um, so it was seen as a real issue. Within weeks of that happening, the government had already taken it down from a really serious thing to less than. They'd already seen the numbers, and it wasn't going to pan out the way it was. The worst case scenario wasn't going to happen. This was known back in March. So all of that was happening, and I start to see a lot of things cancelling and a lot of things stopping and a lot of things like the Olympics and the Edinburgh Festival and all these big events, and I'm like, I'm kind of surprised. And I guess I thought we should. I didn't. I mean, I didn't want to cancel the UK Fruit Fest. at all. And I thought, well, this is the end of July. This is months away. This lockdown is going to be a couple of weeks or whatever, or a month or whatever. Never suspecting it was going to last for like multiple months. And there's still lockdown measures in place. And in Scotland, they've locked down Aberdeen again. It's absolute madness. It's total madness. We've worked out a long time ago this was not anywhere near as fatal as we suspected it to be. And it's been very strange reporting of the numbers. Just a lot of strange things. I know a lot of you maybe don't agree with my thoughts on this, but to me it's obvious that a lot of this has been inflated or been made out to be more dangerous than it is. At least that's what I see from what I'm looking at, and that's my honest opinion. I don't think I'm biased about that. So, anyhow, I'm in Thailand, which isn't ideal. I'm in a place where I've not really got Wi-Fi connection. I've no idea what the attendees of the event are thinking, and I'm like, what do I do now? You know, and my instinct was to try and keep going with it, and that this would kind of pass, and it did pass, but the emotion didn't pass, and the fear, and the worry, and I was sitting there, and every day, stories were coming out with scare stories, and yet the numbers started to come down and down and down and down. And the public was still reacting to everything, and the public was still, getting into it all. And I'm looking at this going, what are we doing? Why are we still locked? And then we were like still locked down and still locked down. And I saw when the numbers started to come down, I was like, that's it. We're starting to reek. This is what happens with respiratory, epidemics. You get that typical curve. It goes up. Once it's kind of reached most of the population, it starts to come down. So it's quite clear at that point, okay, that's what's happened and it's starting to come down. But the script had shifted. The script was no longer we need to slow this down until, and flatten the curve. It was no longer about that. It was about we need to wait until the whole thing disappeared. And that seems to be what we're at now. We can't open anything up until the entire virus is zero, it's not existent anymore. Which is just bizarre. Because you can't stop these things spreading, you can't stop deaths happening. And the idea that, you're not caring but there's lots of deaths happening, and a lot of people will say, well, look, lockdown happened and then and look at all these deaths, and that if we had lockdown it would have been even more deaths. And more I'm starting to suspect that we're going to find out that lockdown was the cause of deaths. That lockdown caused deaths. Now you might say, well, why is that? Because if you've got a whole bunch of people in their 80s and 90s in hospital in their last weeks, months of life, and all of a sudden there's a suspicion that there's going to be this massive amount of people coming in because of a pandemic, guess what happens? Who gets priority? Old people? No. Younger people get priority in that situation. So the old people get shoved out somewhere else, care homes and so on, where they die because they don't have the level of, I'm assuming they don't have the level of medical care. I'm suspecting that's the information that will start to come out at some point, and that's where the spike of deaths came, because coronavirus was circulating before lockdown and we didn't have any excess deaths. So somehow every country in the world just managed to lock down at the exact point before deaths escalated. No, deaths escalated because of lockdown is what I think will maybe come out. I don't know if the truth will ever come out about this. And it went on and on and on and on. It went on and on and on. It's still going on, right? It's still going on. Went on and on and on. And I'm just every day like, what do I do? Can I sign anyone else up for the festival? Does anyone want to still come? Turned out more and more, no one was wanting to sign up because they weren't sure about it. And then we started to get a lot of cancellations coming. And a registration for the festival can be one person, but it can be two people, it could be a couple, or it could be a family. And we had approximately 100 cancellations. And the worst thing about running an event is cancellations. The worst thing, one of the worst things about having any kind of business is people that cancel or refund or, you know, want their money back, basically. Because it feels bad. Even if you had 10 people sign up, if you have one person cancel, it's not outweighed by all the people that sign up. It still feels bad. It's a weird thing, and but it is true, and you only experience it if you've been through that. And a lot of people have seen me go through that, and they don't understand why I get like kind of emotional or upset about it or angry about it or whatever. But that's what happens. It's a struggle. So I saw that happen. Um, Cancellations start to come in, and because we had a lot of people coming from abroad, we had people that were signed up from Canada, from Australia, from America, from all over Europe, coming to Fruitfest. It's going to be amazing, the amount of people from different parts of the world. It's going to be so cool. And they all started to cancel. And in 1 month we had like 47 cancellations in 1 month. And that's a lot. That's more than the total of the previous year in 1 month. And and the issue is that the way the event's put together, you've got some expenses you're not going to get back. So if everyone cancels, you've got things that you've invested in prior to the event that we don't get a refund on. So you're advertising anyone that's working for you or doing bits of work for you, helping you with admin, or if you're paying people for doing things like that, you're not going to get that money back, you know. And in our case, we had some debt from the year before, because last year there was some debt that would have to be recovered this year, but it looked like that would be fine. That would all be recovered fine, and everything was quite conservative in my approach to the festival. Like I wasn't getting money in and spending it all. Like everything was very conservative and very, you know, budgeted and all that kind of stuff. So when all this stuff started to happen, it was stressful and difficult to deal with. And then and I'm out in Thailand and I don't really want to be there. I want to be back here trying to work out what to do, you know, and be able to phone people. And yes, I could phone people from Thailand, but you know, by Wi-Fi, and they'd have to be online. Like I couldn't just phone someone's phone, or I could, but I'd have to buy some kind of packet, or whatever. I'd have to like be paying for every call, and I just felt weird that I was out there, and yet I still kind of, eventually I still was kind of able to enjoy it, but I was always feeling this kind of weird pressure and stress and whatever. It did help that I was doing the mango thing for sure. That was really great. And Aubrey, my girlfriend at the time, you know, she was supportive, but she was also saying, you know, you should just cancel this. You need to cancel it, and she wasn't, you know, happy about it, I guess, and whatever. So it made things a bit uncertain. And then eventually she wanted to go back home and we split up and stuff. So and that would have probably happened regardless. It wasn't really connected to that whole situation, but it doesn't really help if things aren't going good and you don't know what's happening. So she went home, and then I was just in Thailand, like on my own, and I'm like, I don't really want to be here. But the last few weeks in Thailand, or the last month or whatever it was that I was on my own, I enjoyed it. I actually did. I had a really great neighbor, a guy called Reed, who I just really loved hanging out with and talking to, and he was he was just a great guy, and very open to talking and really interested in people, and he was funnily, he was like smoker, drinker, uh, junk food consumer and all that stuff, but apart from that, but he was a very fit guy. He was fit, very smart. He was getting on with life. Nomad, and I admired him and liked his company. But I knew I was going home, and got back, and then still in the last few weeks, I'm like, and my mum actually said, well, you should, if you cancel it and you need money to cover the debt, then I'll give you money. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. Wanted to put on the event, and saw the different rules, and it said campsites were going to open up. So then I got in touch with the campsite we use for the festival, and they're like, yeah, you can go ahead. And I'm like, are you sure? And they're like, yeah, yeah, no problem. And I'm like, well, I'm not sure if that's right. And I'm thinking they're going to cancel on me, but then it seems like they don't want to cancel on me. And I'm like, well, can you at least get some advice and make sure that your advice is accurate? And they come back to me and say, yeah, we're happy for you to go ahead. You just want to put a few restrictions in place and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay. And the best situation for us on every level was for the event to go ahead. Financially, for everything. Like, the best scenario was the event goes ahead. And for the people that were signed up, and for me personally, really needing it. So went forward with it. Last few weeks were difficult. Got actually some more people signed up in the last few weeks, but there was cancellations again. And it was really just tough. And I thought we only had about 50 people going. And I phoned everyone up, and I was saying, we've the festival's a lot smaller than we planned, but that's actually probably a good thing, and we've got about 50 people and all that. Turned out we actually had 70 people at the festival. And I was kind of apprehensive. I thought, oh, still, like, police might turn up. And I really thought this, even driving down there. I was just worried. But I knew that the attendees weren't doing anything illegal. They weren't doing anything against the law. Maybe I was, but they weren't. So, but when I got down to the campsite, I was like, wait, it was like a different world. The campsite was virtually full of people. The pub and the bar there was plenty of people milling around, and I'm like, wait, has lockdown just kind of stopped? Like, where I am in Scotland, my parents, my grandparent, my grandfather, they're all like shielding, locked down, staying in, staying away from people, and it seems like maybe a lot of people are doing that. Whereas I get down to Gloucestershire, and like everyone's just hanging out, and I'm like, oh well, there's no chance. And that made me relax, because I thought, if they're getting away with this, there's so many people in this campsite, and there's no social well, I guess there is kind of social distancing to some degree, but it wasn't very obvious. Then there's no problem for the fruit festival. So it went ahead, and honestly, many people said it was the best festival so far. And we even had a whole bunch of our usual speakers just dropped off. A lot of them dropped off last minute. A lot of them dropped off without any real reason. Just, oh, busy. Oh, I just don't want to travel. Oh, difficult. Oh, COVID. people just were using COVID as a big excuse for everything. Just like a lot of the attendees, like, oh, I can't travel because of COVID, and I'm like, yes, you can. Like, here's the rules for your country. You can travel into the UK. Oh, whatever. So I just don't feel safe. Blah, blah, all this stuff. So we were down to like 4 or 5 speakers, and I had to get a few people last minute that I knew, but I was kind of betting on them being good. Turned out they were like better than could have been expected. One guy, James Bebbington, who came to me last year and he wanted to speak, and I was like, well, I've never seen you speak before. I don't really know you that well, and kind of want to, maybe you should come to the event, whatever. But and he had been the year before, but I just like I don't just want to put someone up and be a speaker. Like, it's an influential position, right? So, but he did amazing. Like, people really liked him and everything. And I had Rhiannon Vandergriffen, who I'd actually spoken to a while back, but I spoke to her, and she came and she did amazing, and people loved her. And they really got involved in it and everything. And Doug Graham, I said to him, I need you to do as much as you can, and he sent me 24 presentations, like, there, put me in everything you want. And Doug was speaking sometimes for 4 hours in a day, and he's not everyone's cup of tea, but we needed that. And Doug really supported me in the festival in this time in a way that a lot of people didn't. But that's, that's people's choice. But that, to me, I know a lot of people don't like Doug, or they don't have positive feelings about him or whatever. But he is absolutely devoted, passionate about teaching this information to people, and he loves it. Like, he loves being a teacher and helping people and all that stuff. He enjoys it in a big way, and he's good at it. But he really helped, and a lot of people said he was on his best form. Like, he was on his best form, very focused, and one of his friends died, just days before, David Klein, and he was dealing with David Klein's funeral. He gave the eulogy online, and yet he still got up the next day and he was giving presentations, and no problem, running classes, and all that stuff. So Doug did a phenomenal job. Dr. Arelli did a great job, and she seemed to really get involved in the festival, be part of it. Dr. Ellen Storm, she helped out with the children's activities. People were stepping up and helping out. We had Roger King, who's, a lot of you don't know who Roger is, but for the people that go to the UK Fruitfest or have been, he's like a legendary character who started off just coming as an attendee, started to help out bit by bit, and then people were just wanting more of him, and then he would speak, and then people wanted to see more of him, and he doesn't speak about the raw vegan diet, and he does apply it. I don't think he's a raw vegan fully. I don't even know if he's vegan fully. It's not something that I particularly have a conversation with him about, but he talks about self-love and developing a loving relationship and all these topics, and people love it, and people love to listen to him, and he had workshops at the festival that were just like, people were going through all sorts of emotional experiences and healings with Roger. And then he does the dance as well, and he just gets everyone dancing, and he's a fun character and a great guy, and a very skilled counsellor, healer, workshop facilitator, and so on. And people really admire him, and he puts a lot of people at ease. He's a very, very open guy, like, about his emotions and all that, and he's great. He's a someone that we can all look up to. So Roger's great. And I gave talks for the first time ever, really. I mean, I've given some talks at the festival, but I gave like 4 or 5 and enjoyed that. And the week was just like every day I was just seeing people being so happy, enjoying it so much, saying it was like the best week of their life, saying it was transformational, and I'm like, I'm so glad that somehow I managed to put this on. Somehow I managed to keep going. That somehow there was something in me that was saying, just do it. And it's just crazy. I don't even know how we managed to pull that off within and within like a day. Most people weren't even thinking at all about pandemic, coronavirus, distancing, and all that. That all fell apart. Some people were very apprehensive in the first day, but that kind of vanished. And it was just back to normality and being around people and having a good time and being around the campfire and playing music and great conversations and meeting cool people and having people just look so different at the end of the week, like coming in one state and then coming out like they're flushed with health. They have the health flush. Like they've got that red rosy cheeks and they look slimmer and they look happier and everything's good, you know. Not everything in life. But then there's a lot of people for whom it was an emotional experience because they got to connect with people. They felt in a safe place to talk and be open to people. And fruit attracts good people together. I don't know what it is, but the raw vegan diet brings good people together. Then they eat the diet. That brings people to their best place. And they're in this great place and they're learning all this stuff. And it's such a wonderful experience to learn and then there's all the emotional side of it and it was just a great week. I'm just so glad I was able to put it on and that everyone was there to manifest it and all that. So I don't know. I just wanted to make this video as a recap. I've come home now. I'm still dealing with the last of the refunds. The festival lost money. Um, I lost money, obviously, which is what that means. And I've taken on some debt to that I want to pay back as soon as possible and all that. And that's a reality of what happened this year, and that's what coronavirus did to a lot of people and a lot of businesses. But if you're an entrepreneurial person, that's part of the risk you take. You take that risk. I don't have any um, particular resentment about. I mean, I do think it's stupid what's happened with the lockdown. I think it's stupid that we're trying to lock down until cases get to zero. I think that's just bizarre, just stupid that we're tanking the economy, destroying people's livelihoods, destroying like businesses that people built up over then. UK Fruitfest is a small. UK Fruitfest is like a really small event in the whole scheme of things, very small. And there are other companies, for example, that they'll do events of the size of UK Fruitfest every week, if not multiple times a week, if you know what I mean. And they bring in that many people. There'll be holiday places like Centre Parks, I don't know, Butlins, Portland, whatever, different places that they'll bring in that amount of people just on a weekly basis through the summer in multiple sites and all that. So I know the impact that UK Fruitfest has on the economy, right, in a small way. So we would have been paying VAT on a lot of things. We give money to this guy to because we rent this thing from him. We rent this thing from him. We pay this person for that. We pay for all the extra accommodation and all that. So when coronavirus hits and all the people cancel and everything happens, all of a sudden you're not paying this guy. You're not getting the extra thing. You're not going to I don't know my exotic fruit for exotic fruits. You're not doing these little extras that you would usually do. You're taking in way less money. You're losing money, so you're not generating any like taxes. We're not generating enough money to pay any VAT. Um, There's all these people who would have been flying into the country, putting money into airlines, putting money towards airports, and all the people that work there, all the different shops, hotels, transport, if we'd hired buses and all the different transport that would have benefited from it. Um, Obviously, ordering more fruit, having more people work on it, maybe provided some employment to some degree, and all these things, right, that happen. But that's on a small scale for UK Fruitfest. For the entire economy, it's massive. The amount that's just been sucked out, the amount that's just been stopped by stopping people from being able to move around, go places, be around people, do things, etc., etc., etc. And that's madness in my mind, unless you've got a real like total killer virus that the only thing to do is to shut down until it goes away. And that's not what we have on our hands, as far as I can see. And as far as I know, no one's went home from UK Fruitfest and is going, oh man, I've got symptoms and I went to the hospital and I've not had any of that. So I'm just in a place of like, I should be feeling terrible. Like this should be like the worst time of my life, and you know, the festival took a real hit. I've taken a hit. Relationship ends, and all these things come together, and I'm like, I'm actually feeling okay about things. I'm feeling kind of positive, and I think that's the state of mind and the mindset that I've developed over the years. I think it's embracing health, embracing a healthy diet and lifestyle, and embracing all the things that help me feel good and better about things and keep me positive. So I'm gonna keep on keeping on, and I'm not worried about any of this stuff too much. I just want to keep going forward, and but I don't know. I'm in a position when I'm like, do I want to? So I've not. We didn't ask people to sign up for next year's festival, which is what we usually do at the festival. And loads of people were saying, I want to come back. I want to sign up for next year. I'm coming back. I'm coming back. Loads of people were saying that because they loved it so much this year. And I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know yet what's happening. Until some level of normality comes back, I don't even want to make a decision about UK Fruitfest. Until there's some level of normality in the world again. And but there's part of me that's saying, is it what I want to do? Is the Fruit Fest really what I want to do with my life? Is health related stuff what I want to do? Do I want to go and do other things that might be less risky, more profitable, maybe easier, but maybe wouldn't be as satisfying on some level? I don't know. I just don't really know. And so, but I will probably keep making these videos.